Hello, everybody. First of all, let's welcome to the call. Type in the chat if you can hear me. Very excited to be connecting with you. Ari is here with me as well, and he's going to help me to remember to ask questions and things like that because I don't always remember that. Okay, great. Anna says she can hear us, and Guy says I can hear you. Wonderful. So we're going to wait for a couple more people to come on the call.
We just sent out a reminder email. Zoom's been having a little, I think Zoom is getting a little overwhelmed recently. Can you imagine how many more Zoom webinars there are on a daily basis right now? It's pretty crazy. The software, not just Zoom, but softwares like this.
Yeah. So I see we have some people who are SoStocked members and some people who are not. So we'll be able to show you these tips, techniques, things like that, as well as how you can apply them within SoStocked itself. So if you're a SoStocked user currently, you'll be able to, maybe learn a few new things about the software as well. All right. John Lynn says, good morning. Sound cuts out every now and then. That's not good. Okay, so hopefully we've got some more people coming on board. Michael and Paul and Sean. Wonderful. All right.
If there are continuous sound problems, just let us know and we might switch to a microphone. Like I said, Zoom's been having technical problems. We had a really challenging time the other day on a Zoom call, so hopefully we won't have too many problems.
Actually, that was a BeLive call. BeLive was driving me nuts.
I think it's just, honestly, it's just like right now, internet service providers are overwhelmed. All this video streaming constantly all day, everyone at home. It's just
everyone on Facebook 24/7.
We have the highest internet we can get in our town, and it's like really slow and weak.
Okay,
good. So it
sounds good from New Zealand. Okay, cool. So we're gonna wait a couple more minutes to get people on to let them find their way onto the call. I do have a poll though. I'm gonna launch a poll, and I'm very interested in finding out essentially how do you currently manage your inventory, since this is a call about inventory and inventory planning. So go ahead and take a few minutes to answer, and we'll find out how people are currently managing their inventory so that we can kind of gear things in that direction.
It's a great question.
Excel is a very common answer.
Yeah.
It's how we used to.
When we were really new, we would just we didn't even have Excel at one point. It was just like, let me go into Amazon and see if my inventory is low and randomly place orders.
That's what I have in my head.
In my head.
That's one of the answers.
Running it by what Amazon tells you to do and not keeping track of it in any other platform would be in my head.
Yeah. All right, so we've got other software and Excel seem to be kind of the winners there. We've only got 6 answers out of 14.
Yeah, give people a couple minutes.
Yeah.
And if you are using other software, just for fun, type that in the chat box. What other software besides the ones listed here are you using? And if it's your own, or if it's something you don't want to share, that's fine too. We're just kind of curious, like where people.
Airtable, yep, Airtable. I tried to, before SoStocked, I tried to convert all my Excel over to Airtable, and it still was a mess.
It was better than nothing, but yeah, Airtable is cool because it's customizable, but it doesn't really do calculations for you.
Yeah.
Shopkeeper.
Yeah, Airtable is awesome. We use Airtable to manage other things, other projects, and in collaboration with other people. I like to be able to turn the forms into entries in Airtable. Inventory planner. Okay, awesome. Okay, good. So I think that we will we'll go ahead and get started. So a lot of people using Excel, a couple of other people using various different softwares. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into the topics. I'm going to share my screen. And if you have any questions, you can type them in the chat, and then we will get to them. If they're relevant for during the presentation, I will answer them. Otherwise, I will save the Q&A for the end of the presentation. All right, let me go ahead and get my Excel going, or rather the PowerPoint. Okay. Okay, presentation mode. Right, we are loading, guys. Okay. So this is inventory planning in a pandemic. Okay, so first a little bit about me. So I am an Amazon seller. I've been an Amazon seller since 2014. And I'm also a speaker and consultant. I have spoken on stage at the Amazing Summit, at seller events. I've been on the MPM podcast, Seller Stories with Jungle Scout, and I also specialize in copywriting. I have been able to help my clients increase their conversions by 2, 6, and sometimes even 8%. So I have
8 times, not 8%.
8 times, yes.
8% is not impressive.
No, that's not.
8 times is.
Well, 8% conversion is impressive,
Sure,
actually.
yeah, but 8 times the sales.
Yes. So that's a little bit about me. So I've been around, and I have been around the seller space for some time now. Now, let me talk about my struggle and why I've gotten into inventory management and become somewhat of an expert on inventory management. It was by necessity, essentially. So I was coming across a lot of issues with inventory and a lot of money lost because of inventory mismanagement, I like to call it. Towards the beginning of our business, we had an order during Christmas, and because of being late in terms of placing our order, we lost about $30,000 in sales during Christmas, which to us, that was a lot at the time. It was our, the first year, one of the first year, I think, of our business.
The first full year.
Yeah, the first full year of our business. So that was basically our entire Christmas inventory was stranded. And that was due to mismanagement of our inventory. And then we also had an stocking out and lost an entire month's worth of income on our top seller. Top seller was doing about 90% of our sales. So it was almost, pretty much like running out of inventory completely. We've also over-ordered on products and paid thousands in storage fees and loan interest in paying for the over-ordering of the product. It took about 2 years for us to get rid of that product itself because of over-ordering. And then overestimating on holiday inventory because we didn't factor in a sales spike based on a one-time event that was not going to repeat itself. We over-ordered and again paid thousands extra in storage fees and loan interest on products just sitting and not moving and not making money. And that doesn't even factor in all the lost opportunity in being able to have the capital to invest in new products and launch new products. So we started to see how much inventory mismanagement was affecting our businesses and had to do something about it. So comment in the chat if this type of thing, if this type of scenario sounds familiar to you. Has anybody experienced any of these things? Yes, we get yes, very much. Yes, and this is the most important, one of the most important aspects of your business. We are in an inventory business, and we're in a physical products business. If you're out of inventory, you're out of business. So managing this properly has everything to do with the survival of your business and has everything to do with cash flow. We know that cash flow is hugely important in this. Inventory is wrapped around all of these different aspects of your business. Yes. Because of coronavirus, someone says, because of coronavirus ran out in one day. Yes, and that's some of the stuff that we are going to be talking about right now, because it's a very uncertain time. So, so in a nutshell, I have taken I had to find a solution to this problem. So I decided I needed to dedicate my time to doing it. So I knew I needed a solution, right? So what happened? I met this guy. So who is this guy? This is Dan Fernandez. Dan Fernandez is the founder of Thomason.com. Thomason is an influencer software. I used Thomason back in 2014, 2015. I'd known about Thomason, and they had done a lot of work with Amazon sellers in terms of reviews and video reviews through influencers. So the fact that after the reviews purge, when everything changed and all of the reviews software companies really kind of faltered and failed, I was extremely impressed that they were able to pivot what they were doing, and they were still around and doing very, very well, as they are focused on influencers and connecting brands with influencers. So I met Dan at an Amazon event, and I had this problem about inventory management. I tried these various different softwares, and none of them were really working for me. I was extremely frustrated about the fact that these weren't working for me. I couldn't get them to do what I wanted them to do. I couldn't track things. If I had a warehouse inventory, I couldn't get the software to even look at warehouse inventory. So the suggestions that it was giving me didn't make sense because I had a warehouse, so they were telling me to order when I didn't need to order. And it was just kind of going in circles. And then I was trying to get into another software, and they wanted to charge me $1,200. So by the time I met Dan, I had already decided I needed to solve this inventory problem. And I thought, I need to find someone who can build a software to be able to do that. 2 weeks later, I meet Dan, and he is complaining about how he's bored and he needs a new software project. So I kind of laughed to myself, and with the help of Ari, my husband, kind of forced my way into getting him to see how inventory management for Amazon sellers was a very needed project for him to take on. So we've spent the last year and a half basically eating, sleeping, and breathing Amazon inventory management. We've tested the most popular inventory management softwares on the market. We've surveyed and worked with dozens of 7- and 8-figure Amazon businesses and crowdsourced information to get the best understanding of the elements of good inventory management and all of the facets that make up proper forecasting. So we've been able to, with the gracious help of these Amazon businesses and Amazon sellers who have sent us their spreadsheets, their systems, their feedback, what they look at, beyond just our own business, looking at how do big successful sellers look at inventory management. And that's where we were able to put together So Stocked. All right, so what do we do about the changes that have been made that are basically unprecedented? We're in an unprecedented time. So given the fact that something has changed within the market, right, with coronavirus, and it's not, it may be that your products have basically screeched to a halt, or there are some products that are doing extremely well. How do we figure out what we should be doing and what we should be planning for when everything is so up in the air? We don't know when this is going to end. We don't know when people are going to get back to work, when spending is going to be normal again, and when spending on discretionary items is going to be normal, when people are going to stop hoarding toilet paper and other things, when the survival products are going to start slowing down again because people don't think the apocalypse is upon us. What do we do? So flexibility is really the key. And that's if you take away one thing, I want you to take away that really being flexible. And I think you're kind of seeing that. Being flexible right now is the key. So what's happening right now requires not just one plan, but many contingencies, many resources, and constant vigilance to the changes occurring in the market today, right? So today is about exploring what those options are. If we're uncertain, we don't know how to manage things, and we don't know what to expect, let's figure out a couple of different things that we can line up so that we can be flexible to what is going to be occurring. So we can kind of pivot in any way that is possibly available to us. So that's what I'm here to provide to you, is various different tools to allow that flexibility. So I would say 8 flexibility techniques to adopt right now to succeed big after this pandemic is over. All right, so number one, defer all possible payments. Type in the chat if you have done any of this, any deferring of any payments. Essentially, this is taking advantage of any possible deferrals, loans, or grants that you can. So that means, things like turning off, stop paying the bills that you don't have to pay. Start stocking up on cash right now. So things like and this is in the US, and perhaps, if you're in another country, perhaps there's some other stimulus that is occurring in your country. But in the US, there's something called the CARES Act. So that's the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Bill passed by Congress. And although this isn't a presentation on cash flow, it's not a presentation on CARES, I want to make you aware of this because this is part of the plan for flexibility. And that is essentially to really kind of, rein in any spending that you possibly can, to stock up money and stock up cash for inventory. Because, like I said, if you're out of inventory, you're out of business. And we don't know what's going to happen next month. We don't know what's going to happen the month after that. So even if you can pay your bills right now, it's important to be able to pay your bills tomorrow too. And that has everything to do with your ability to place inventory orders. So look into the CARES Act, which is passed in the US. One of the things that is in the works now, which we're still waiting on payout for that, but it's recovery rebates. So you should be getting up to, again, crossing our fingers because I haven't heard anyone who's gotten payouts yet, but we should be getting recovery rebates from the government up to $1,200 per person to be paid out automatically based on your adjusted gross income on your last tax return, with another $500 per child. So that's supposed to be coming automatically to you. And then Payment Protection Program offers small business administration loans and grants. See ZonCon episode number 33. So just Google ZonCon podcast and look up episode number 33. You can also apply for this program through cabbage.com. Facebook is also offering $100 million in cash grants and ad credits to specific businesses. So you can search for, Facebook, cash grants or Facebook relief grants, and Google that, and you might find something that's popping up. I've personally submitted for that, and I'm waiting to hear back on that. And then banking institutions are offering deferred payments on credit cards, lines of credit, loans for personal and business. So this is the first thing that I would do right now if you haven't done this right now, is just to kind of rein in your spending so that you can prepare for the future. So let me know if you have done any of this right now or if you plan to do it right now. The Facebook cash grant. So I would search Facebook, say Facebook cash grant. They've been promoting it all over, but I think you should be able to search, Facebook 100 million cash grant. If you Google that, it should come up. That was a question that was asked in the chat. And so there's only specific locations that they're allowing that, but if you live near a Facebook headquarters, you will be, I think, on that list. Austin, Texas is on that list. I know in Seattle is on that, but there are several different countries and several different states within the US that are offering, you can basically submit to be considered for a grant from Facebook. So essentially, yes. Yeah, so that, I would say that's the first thing that you would do is to, to maintain flexibility. Cash needs to be very much available. So do anything that you can to defer payments. All right. And now use short-term velocities. So right now, as we are seeing, short-term velocities become very important. So I know a lot of people look at, the past 90 days, 60 days, 30 days worth of sales, and that's how they predict what they're going to be ordering. But right now, short-term velocities is what we're instructing everyone to look at, is short-term velocities. So those are things like, the past 2 days, 7 days, and 15 days worth of sales, because either your velocities have increased significantly or decreased. It's not usual right now to see that they have stayed the same. A lot of things have changed in that. So I kind of wanted to jump into how you would look at that in So Stocked. And let's do this. Okay. All right, so if you're in so stocked, what you would do is essentially you can see, I want you to see the difference in looking at velocities. You can see how much velocities have changed over time. So you've got your 180-day, right? For this particular product, the 180-day average was closer to 40, and now we've got in the, you know, kind of 15 unit per day velocity. So looking at in the short term your short-term velocities and planning for you know, only using your short-term velocities, whatever software you're using, whatever plan you're using. If you're using Excel and you're used to looking at 60 days or 90 days, start kind of ratcheting that down to the 30 days or 15 days in your short-term planning right now.
Does that make sense, everyone?
Let's see. No problem. Sorry, guys. 1 second.
Okay, good. So this makes sense.
Good.
Yeah, some of the inventory planning stuff can get pretty heady because you're dealing with a lot of numbers and significance. So that's why we're trying to get visuals instead of just talking about numbers online, like actually show you. When you're looking at software, you're looking at spreadsheets, and you're just looking at charts and columns of numbers, it can get a little overwhelming. So we're trying to use like real examples and stuff like that.
Yeah, sorry, my slides are doing something funny, so I'm gonna get back to the slides. Here we go. Okay, yeah, it's been very interesting to see what has increased and what hasn't. You know, a lot of groceries have obviously increased, but things that, you know, things like educational toys have increased. Of course, survival has increased. You know, so it's very interesting sometimes to see what has increased, but then when you think about it, it does end up making sense. So we talked about velocities, so looking at the short-term velocities, and, you know, kind of paying attention to, as much as I don't like to say, you know, to spend all your days looking at the news, as much as I don't like to have people, you know, spending their whole time looking at the news, it is important to start to pay attention to what do people think, how long do they predict this to extend out? So are people saying June? Are they saying in April? Are they saying May? In your specific, you know, in your specific market, which most people I believe are selling in the US primarily, what is that government saying about the epidemic? So if you live in another country and you're selling in the US, it might make sense to start paying attention to what are the projections in terms of the duration of this and of, you know, the economic fallout of this, because yes, okay, so what is the government saying, please? So the government essentially, and Ari can weigh in on this because you pay more attention.
I'm just making sure there's something urgent.
Okay. So you pay more attention to the news, and we're essentially hearing
the government
June,
doesn't,
right?
Look, here's the bottom line. The government doesn't know. Nobody knows. So like, we're not going to get straight answers from Trump, from the CDC, from the WHO, from any organization, right? We know that absolutely nothing's changing, at least until the beginning of May. Most likely probably through June. In some states, like I know Virginia, they're basically on lockdown through the end of June. And that might spread out further, but that's just in terms of the social distancing stuff, right? That has nothing to do with in terms of like import, export.
Yeah, well, and we're more interested in, when are people planning to go back to work? When do we foresee people planning to go back to work? We're looking at, you know, June is, I think, the furthest out that we are hoping that it will go. So when you're talking about when, you know, looking at what your current velocity is and projecting out your current velocity, you know, so that 15-day velocity, I would say would probably be a safe bet to start out with, you know, until the end of June. You know, things probably won't go back to normal, because even if we go back to work, you've got a lot of people that have lost their jobs. So spending is going to take a little while to ramp up. So we can say, you know, if you're projecting out your short-term velocities right now, you know, end of May, maybe even end of June, is what you might, be able to expect in terms of your current short-term velocity before you can go back to your normal velocities. Is a good kind of guesstimate. But that's the thing, is to start paying attention to what is being said in the government that you're selling in, as to when things are going to be getting back to normal. There is good news in terms of the trend of number of new cases are going down in specific states. So that kind of leads us to the more hopeful, shorter side of this whole thing. But that's what you need to look at, is when do I start pivoting towards looking at my longer term, or my previous, my pre-corona velocities versus the short-term velocities. I should probably speed this up. And then the other thing is, the other important thing is to factor out stockouts. So if you've stocked out, I know someone on this webinar mentioned stocking out. If you have stocked out, you have to be able to factor that portion of lost sales out of your averages. So if you're looking at your average, you have to be able to say, okay, well, I usually sell 900 units per month, and I've stocked out for 10 days, so I only had 600 units. I can't base my 30-day or my 15-day average on that period without stock outs. You have to adjust your averages. So one of the ways that we do this, for all of you who are currently using SoStocked, one of the ways that we do this is with the stock outs. So if you haven't played around with the stock outs feature, you can turn it on or turn it off, but it will identify periods of stock out. So you can see here all of these zeros. These get factored out of the forecast, so you don't have to worry about doing all the math to calculate. So if you've stocked out during coronavirus, you can eliminate that. And we are currently also working on developing an algorithm to be able to really just eliminate coronavirus altogether for your future forecasting. Yes.
Let's check the chat.
Okay.
I want to see if I can log in this webinar and answer chats too, so it's not
okay, good.
operating on one screen.
Yeah.
I want to make sure it doesn't interfere with your presentation.
Yeah. Okay, good. So that's stockouts and velocities and stockouts. So those are two things that you need to factor in right now. And then the next thing is obvious, seems to be obvious, prioritizing your top sellers. So if cash flow is an issue, or if it could be an issue, prioritizing your top sellers is very important. If you're able to, if your products have a high MOQ but low sales velocity, and you're not able to churn through that MOQ within a month, you might want to consider putting that on the back burner. That's a slow moving product, and saving your cash for the quicker sellers. Because if you've got an MOQ that's 1,000, but you move 300 units per month, instead of tying up that capital for 3 months, it might make more sense to reserve it for your faster sellers. All right, and so that's one of the things we want to get to is setting buffer stock. So because there are so many variables going on, and because your top sellers are really your bread and butter, you need to start putting in what I like to call buffer stock. This is something that is set for kind of, as Ari likes to say, it's kind of like when you get to empty, you can still make it to the gas station. So what is that? I call it a false zero. What is that number that you're able to kind of put into your calculation that kind of pads things for you, kind of gives you the ability to have an extra cushion. And so in SoStocked, one of the things that we do is we add, and you can do this in Excel spreadsheet, and I'm not sure about the other softwares, whatever softwares you're using, but it's to add to your calculation, not to end up at zero. So if you look at, this is an inventory timeline. It lays out for each product when you're going to be running out of stock. And you'll see that this gets us all the way to zero before it tells us to restock. So when we have what's called a buffer stock, we can actually add a number of units to have us be alerted to order long before it's actually going to be time to get to zero. So you can see we've got a 200 unit buffer stock. So I would say to add buffer stock to your calculation. So you can see now on this right-hand side that we're told to ship units in so that they arrive before we hit 200 instead of before we hit 0. This is something that, again, can be done in an Excel spreadsheet as well, but it's just a thing where you set figures to be able to, if anything goes wrong, you've actually got a little bit of cushion. So we've all been, had things where we've been held up at customs, or there was a hurricane in China. All of these different things that occur, right, are issues that the buffer stock can help to handle. Okay, and then we had someone say, can you please repeat the last point? That was about 4 minutes ago. Let's see.
That was Guy Metzler. Do you want to type in, Guy, type in the chat what point you were, or what she was talking about. If you missed anything, if anyone missed anything, just go ahead and type it in the chat.
Right. So he says 1 sec, please. And we also had another question on buffer stock, which says, any guidelines on how to calculate the required buffers? How many days of inventory do I need as a buffer? There's not a one-size-fits-all answer, but would appreciate some guidelines. Yeah, so that's a really good question. So in terms of buffer stock, I always look at 2 different things. Essentially, how are you going to be sending your inventory? Do you have inventory sitting waiting in a warehouse that takes a couple of days to ship in? Or do you have inventory that has to ship directly from China and the lead time is, say, 60 days or more? Right, so if you've got inventory sitting in a warehouse, your buffer stock can be a lot less than if you've got inventory that is needing to be shipped with a 60-day or more lead time. But the 60-day lead time, it gives you a lot more, there's a lot more points at which something could go wrong. So I think that's really what it comes down to, is how many places could your inventory get hung up at. With the warehouse, I would say, a good safe bet would be about 2 weeks, maybe 2 weeks of buffer stock. The only other factor is that Amazon does, or at least I'm not sure what they're doing for coronavirus, but they have had, because they want to be able to get the 2-day delivery and even 1-day delivery for products. They used to have a maximum amount that you could send, and now they have a minimum and a maximum. And they set minimums for some products because they want to be able to deliver within a 1 or 2 day prime delivery time frame. So they might have advice to particular products, of how much inventory you should keep at a minimum, so they can distribute it throughout the country so that they can hit their delivery timelines. So that's another way to be able to program your buffer stock, is to factor in not just how long does it take, not just, the 2 weeks it might take for, as a buffer stock for if you have a warehouse, but also what does Amazon prefer you to have? If you've got a longer timeline, you're sending from China and it has to go through customs, and you've got freight forwarders and you've got suppliers and they've got raw material providers and all of these different things that kind of can, are steps along the lead time. That I would say might be a month worth of buffer stock you might be more interested in having. And every person knows their products, better than I myself would be able to say. So you might know your products a little bit better and you trust your suppliers a little bit better, but that would be a good rule of thumb because of all of the places that you could get caught up. So hopefully that helps to answer it, helps to kind of give you a good rule of thumb on how to organize your particular buffer stock. All right, so Guy says the point regarding calculating variables right now. Yeah, so calculating variables. So I think what we were talking about at that point was if you're selling in the US and the US says we think that things will start to go back to normal by end of June, using your calculation based on the 15 days as opposed to the 90 days, right? And so if you've got, for example, a product that has, see this one is like 40 days in a 180-day velocity, but it's about 15 in the 15-day velocity. So calculating your particular, you know, until June, you would say, okay, I'm going for my 15-day velocity or my 7-day velocity. And then I'm going to go back to my normal sales velocity after June and calculate from that point. So that's just what I was saying, is just, you know, hopefully that clarifies things. Guy, let me know if that answers things, but that's how I would instruct to do it.
Real quick, go to participants and make me co-host so I can help manage questions and stuff. Is this all making sense, everyone, so far? We're trying to figure out, because it's always weird when you're doing a webinar and you don't hear people like, oh yeah, that makes sense. We're trying to use the chat box to kind of get feedback without going too slow, but also without overwhelming you with facts and figures.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Cool.
All right, okay. Increase your orders by 20%. Okay, so this is going into the post-corona time period. So this is what we're looking for, third quarter, fourth quarter, and then even into first quarter of next year. What are our orders going to be looking like? When things get back to normal, will they actually get back to normal? So one of the recommendations made is, and this originally came from our sourcing and logistics expert, Afulabi, who does webinar calls every other week for us, and brought up a very salient point in that you're going to have competitors that are not going to be on the ball. You're going to have competitors that are going to, sorry to say, but possibly go out of business. Mm-hmm. So it's actually going to open up this huge opportunity in the third, fourth quarter, and even first quarter of the year to be able to get some of those sales that they're going to leave behind because of their stocking out. So if you can get in there and get your orders placed, actually consider increasing your orders by 20% to start picking up some of the sales that they are going to miss out on. So you have an opportunity right on the tail end of this to be able to kind of swoop in there and increase your sales, which is very much needed if your sales are slowing right now, because you know, obviously you need to make up for the lost income if you have been seeing a dip in your sales.
Yeah, no, on that point, real quick, I just want to jump in. Did you already cover the financial stress stuff?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's a good reason right there why it's important to free up as much cash as possible. You probably already said this. I just want to reiterate it. If you're going to be placing these additional orders, you need cash. You need money to be able to do that. We don't know what's going to happen with the banks and with credit and stuff like that, but take advantage of every available incentive or bailout that they're giving.
Loans and things like that.
Okay, so Chun-Lin has a question. Is it okay if I ask questions now, or should we wait till the end?
Well, I wanted to get through if it's very relevant, but we can come back to it if it's
forecasting. We're fine. Just it's not like urgent.
Okay.
We'll answer all the questions.
Yeah, and just so you guys know, I forgot to mention, and I keep kicking myself for forgetting to mention these things, but I do have something, an offer specifically for the on-webinar guys at the end. So that's another reason I'm trying to get through, is so that I can submit the offer. I know that people do have time constraints, so I want to be able to present that offer to you guys at the end, which I think that you would like. All right, so yes, increasing your orders by 20%. All right, so one of the ways that we do that in So Stocked very quickly and easily is actually, here we go. So we have something, so for example, I use this. I've set this velocity manually at 100 units, because 100 is very easy math, right? So we have something called adjusted sales growth. So you can go in right here, and whatever your velocity currently is, you can add a percentage on top of it, right? And then it will actually calculate. So instead of 100 units a day, it'll calculate 120 units a day, and then we'll project out what your order needs are, right, based on your particular situation. All right, so let's go back to, so calculating that extra sales growth for the third and fourth quarter is a smart way to kind of strategize. All right, and now adjust to your lead times. Okay, this part gets to be important. So it's not business as usual. It's not, the lead times that you currently have are not the lead times as they will be in the future. There's going to be a big backlog of delivery kind of on all levels. So your supplier is going to have a backlog, your freight forwarders are going to have a backlog, and your FBA receiving is going to have a backlog, right? So would be a good idea right now to ask your supplier what their current lead times are and get them to be very, very honest with you. They're going to want to say what you'll want to hear, but let them know you need to know the actual, what can they actually do. In inventory management, I always like to say the best case scenario is the worst case scenario. And that simply means that when you're doing your planning, you should always plan for the longest period of time. The worst case scenario, plan for that. So that way you can avoid things like having to do air shipping or express shipping because you've ordered well in advance and have been able to kind of buffer those contingencies. Okay, so the other thing that's going to happen is you're going to have all these big companies that are going to be purchasing blocks of space on these freighters for delivery. So the little guys like us are going to be kind of pushed to the back of the line in terms of these shipping delays. Companies like HP and Samsung and Apple are going to be ahead of you in line on those freight ships. So that's another reason to be able to kind of adjust your lead times, right? So, we've got congested seaports, right? There's some closed ports in the US and in the UK. You've got delays in clearing customs. Voyages are going to be longer because of frequent stopovers in other ports before arriving to their final destinations. Longer shipment arrival times to FBA warehouses. Product defect rates might become a factor, and we'll start to create backlogs. You've got higher priority again to containers carrying other products such as medical supplies. Amazon's going to have longer check-in times, and so one of the things you might want to consider is actually starting to look into. You've got air shipping, which is always kind of one of those last resorts, but if it comes to between running out of stock and not, it's sometimes a better option. But you also might want to start looking into 12-day high-speed ocean shipping, which, finding out if that's still going on. But that's something that has been available in the past. And we have I can email you the link to a resource who can help you with that. I can actually also probably put it in the chat. So in terms of lead times on so-stocked and express orders, so what that looks like is here. So we've got lead times built out. I, for example, have built out a coronavirus lead time. So you see all the different lead times, like the default lead time, but you can build out a coronavirus lead time. And essentially that would be just, okay, you find out that it's 45 days of production, and then your ocean freight might be, instead of 30 days, you might want to plan for 45 days on the ocean. And then ground freight, maybe 5 days, and then FBA check-in, let's say 15 days to check in. So those are some of those, worst case scenario contingencies. Start to kind of lengthen out your lead times. If you've got an Excel spreadsheet or whatever you're using, if you're using SoStock, to start to extend out those lead times so you get warned well in advance that you need to send stuff in or you need to place your order so that you don't, get caught unawares. And then the other thing would be calculating express lead times. So if you do end up doing a 12-day ocean freight, or you have to send something by air, it's not always the best case. But if you see that you're going to stock out, like here, right, and then you've got another stock out period here, you can actually calculate how much you need to send by sea or by air, by express. And in SoStock, it'll do the calculation for you, which is really cool. So now instead of 29 days of stock out, we only have 10 days of stock out. And it shows you how much to send by express versus how much to send by normal lead time. I know that was a real pain for us, was how much do we have to send without sending too much that we waste a lot of money on product that we send by air that's just going to sit there. Sure. So you have an express lead time factor that you can use.
Is it possible to set it up where there's 0 days of stock out in this scenario, or this is just an extreme scenario where 10 days stock out is the best you can get just because of the production time.
Well, with this particular product,
Yeah.
that in one day, there's a stock out.
Yeah.
And I just created that scenario by adding, I created a false manual velocity.
Right.
So this isn't, it was just to show the stock out.
Yeah. But yeah, obviously you want to do it so there's no days of stock.
Exactly. Yeah. And one of the things that came up that I will say is, you know, if you've got an order, you can wait until it comes time to ship to decide whether you want to ship by air or by sea. If you've got your order placed, and it's very, you know, volatile, and you're like, well, should I place an order? Should I not? I think I'm going to run out. But I've got an order already ready. Once your supplier says that your product is ready to ship, you can then come back in here and take a look at whether on that day, based on the current, you know, velocity and what your sales have been in the past, whether you should do an air shipment or not. All right, so we've got a few more. Okay, so this is shipping schedule for 2020. So if you know you've got you want to kind of plan for ETA to FBA 2 months. So you know if you've got an extra, say, 45 days of shipping on the ocean and then 15 days check-in. So anything that you, for Prime Day, you would want that to be shipped out by the 30th if you're running behind on your inventory. And you may have extra inventory because your sales are slower. Hopefully that's not the case, but it is for a lot of people. So this kind of gives you the parameters of what you should plan for and how you should plan, because the shipping is going to be backlogged for some time now. So it's not going to just be, okay, well, by, you know, middle of the year, we're going to be all caught up. It's going to take a little while for us to kind of get back to normal.
Yeah. So we might be using express air freight, air shipments a little bit more, just to keep
for right now, you might have to use air shipments, but you shouldn't have to. If you start adjusting your lead times and you order sooner,
yeah,
then you know you might be able to kind of do without having to do air shipments, because you don't want to have to spend that extra money. You've already lost sales, and you've already, you know, you've got a longer lead time, so it's longer before you pay off. You know, it might be a good time to start, you know, looking into seeing if you can negotiate with your suppliers. But I think that's one of the next slides. Avoiding Amazon storage fees. So avoiding Amazon storage fees. So if you're, you know, if you're placing your orders and say you've got, you know, an extra 20%, and you're not sure of how things are going to go because things are so kind of volatile and up in the air, and you've got your orders, it might be a good idea to start looking into getting your Chinese suppliers to warehouse your stuff. A lot of times Chinese suppliers will warehouse your product for up to 3 months. If you talk to them, especially if you give them a large PO, and then you say you're going to ship it, you know, across to the US over time, that would be a good way to kind of go about it, so that you're not sending all of your inventory over all at once and having it collect Amazon storage fees or storage fees here in the US that might be more expensive. So we also have a resource who does China warehousing that we can share also. So, and then of course, warehouse tracking. That became really important to us. Some softwares and systems don't have warehouse tracking kind of worked into their system. So that's something that we did, was to be able to, you know, you have warehouse inventory. Sometimes you don't have to reorder, you have to transfer. So we have to kind of keep track of when do I have to transfer, and transferring is a very different thing than ordering. So you have ordering and you have transferring, and you have to be able to know how much inventory you have, so you're not placing orders that you don't have to place. And that kind of was one of the things that really annoyed me about other softwares, is that they didn't have any inventory or warehouse inventory tracking. So they would tell me to order when I still had, you know, 10,000 units sitting in a warehouse, you know, in California. So having some sort of a way of tracking your warehouse inventory. If you've got warehouse inventory that is in China, the transfer time obviously will increase. It will be a longer transfer time, but it will be the same thing. As you've got inventory sitting in China, you need to be able to track the inventory sitting in China as well. And then lastly, I would say, one of the last points is lowering your cost of goods. So if you are going to run out of stock, or if you have run out of stock, or if your sales have decreased, the other thing to look at in terms of the big picture and being able to keep your profits there, keep your the income making you more money. You've got a certain amount of revenue that's coming in, but if you can lower the expenses, that's going to help you also. So there's a couple of things to know in terms of whether you can lower your cost of goods or not. And this is very enlightening when we started talking with Afolabi, our logistics and sourcing expert. And so essentially there's a high chance that you may be overpaying up to 30% on your cost of goods, right? So the best way to save a ton of money is to be able to buy directly as if you were a local in China. So here's some points, some top signs that you might be paying too much. So answer me in the chat if you can say yes to any one of these 3 points. So one is you contacted your supplier through Alibaba. You communicate to your supplier in some language other than Chinese. You pay your supplier in some currency other than RMB. So
again, if you're China.
This is if you're sourcing from China. So
and RMB is Chinese currency.
Yeah. So say yes if you can answer yes to any one of these questions. Yes to all 3. Let's see, and then that's you. Yes. Okay. Good. Yes. We'll get to the questions in a bit. Okay, so consider putting a professional sourcing agent to work for you. So there are professional sourcing agents. We have one, and I will share the link in the chat, but who, if you have any one of these points, the Chinese suppliers will actually take advantage of the fact that you are foreign, and they will charge you foreign prices. So it's very likely that you'll be able to get your costs down. And one of the things that Afolabi offers is a business audit, looking at your purchase orders and seeing if he can save you money by kind of doing things differently. So now is the perfect time to do that. If you've got, you need to reorder, and you need to get more profit out of the sales that you're already making right now, or that you're going to be making later in the year, to make up for the lost revenue for that's occurring currently.
And yes, we will give you contact information at the end of the webinar. So hang in there.
We are almost done. This is the last point. The last point is inventory tracking. Because it's such a changing market, it's very important to be diligent about your tracking, about tracking your inventory. The seller space is very on. It's doing some very strange and interesting things. So part of the inventory strategy is you need to really know what's going on with your inventory. You need to track it more than you've been tracking it previously. We have a product that we had basically given up on, hadn't sold in 6 months, turned off all the ads. We turned off all the ads on all of our stuff. No ads running to it. All of a sudden starts selling. I mean, and it's selling a unit a day, but how did that happen? We have had, a couple of products that are just selling now. Yeah. And so it's, so you need to pay attention to that stuff, because now we're starting to dig into, well, how can we work with this? How can we improve this? Some of the sales have gone down, but other products have gone up. So paying attention on a weekly basis, or even a daily basis as to what is happening with all of your SKUs, becomes very important. Right? So you have to be, because it's such a strange time, you have to be smarter, more detailed, and more on the ball about tracking your inventory and sales velocities than ever. So if you don't have a good system in place that you can diligently maintain, now's the time to look for one. So SoStocked is our inventory management software. I've shown you a little bit about SoStocked. If you already have it, then you already know what I'm talking about. But we work with, it does forecasting, order tracking, purchase order creation, and inventory management. So I did have a question real quick. If we can have you answer in the chat, how much money do you think that you have loss in even just one instance of inventory mismanagement. I'd be very interested to find out. I know what.
Yeah, like if you've had any, like we gave you the $30,000 mistake that we made in the Christmas of 2015. If you have any stories of, you know, whether you didn't order on time, you ordered too much, any type of inventory fiasco, Guy Mentler says thousands and thousands of dollars per year.
Yeah.
Or thousands of dollars per year. Sorry, I added in extra.
Getting dramatic.
And Enzo asks in 1 year, just any example.
Yeah.
Like
even on one occasion of one stock out or
15,000 in 1 year. Sorry, that was 2 different messages from him. So yeah, 15 grand, $200,000 this. Holy moly.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, that makes our 30 grand look like nothing.
Yeah, it's you know, and that's the thing is, as you scale up your business and as your business expands, those mistakes, that $30,000 to us stocking out at the beginning of our business would be a lot bigger as the business grows.
Yeah.
So that's something to keep in mind, is getting this in, like, dialed in now is, you know, even if you're at the start of your business, is important. Lisa makes a good point. She says, I went from 2 sales per day with 20 SKUs to over 100 sales per day. Only some of the SKUs stocked out. I'm not, and then she goes, I'm sure I'm losing a lot, but don't know how much. So that's a good, there's this old saying that I love, which is the most money you will ever lose is the money you never made in the first place due to poor inventory management and poor planning. So if you think about crap, you know, if I had launched that product 2 months earlier, if I had ordered it a week earlier, like we talked about, those are all the lost sales. A lot of times we don't think about that. Obviously, if a boat gets stuck at sea and you don't make those sales, but that's a kind of obvious reason. Mm-hmm. But yeah, running out and not making sales. So all over the place, but it's very real to the people on this call that inventory can cost a lot of money. Yeah. So let's. Yeah. So the things that we factored into the software as we went along for my own needs, and then the needs of the other sellers that we brought into the software. Things like removing sales spikes. If you've got Prime Day and then you're trying to figure out how much you need to order for September, Prime Day is going to be a sales spike that throws off all of your averages. If you've got a stock outs are going to throw off your averages. Are you factoring in lightning deals? I don't know how many people I've talked to who said they had to cancel lightning deals because they didn't plan for it when they first ordered their inventory. Mm-hmm. Projecting seasonality. You know, are you ordering enough for, you know, the Christmas season, for summer, for whatever your seasonality timeline is? Are you ordering enough for that time? Are you tracking all of your orders and transfers? The majority of stockouts are caused by not remembering to order or transfer inventory. It's checking up with your supplier. Or checking up with your supplier. Oh crap, what happened with that order we placed 2 months ago? The stockouts often are not due to anything but forgetting to keep track of when you need to order these things, right? Or when you need to ship them. Getting reorder alerts, managing FBA third-party logistics, such as, you know, warehousing and things, and on order purchase orders. So managing all of those things, being able to see how much is at FBA, how much is at your warehouse, and how much have you placed an order for where it's in production, or, you know, on a ship going to arrive to the US or whatever. All of those things have to factor into whatever system you are using, be it Excel, be it another software, be it SoStocked. They all have to factor in, and it's why it gets really complicated. Inventory management can become really complicated if you don't have a system in place. So a couple of things, we've had some people using our software. She says, it used to take up ridiculous amounts of time using Excel spreadsheets and other tools, and it was open to human error, which sometimes proved very costly. I can't recommend SoStocked enough. Trust me, you want to give it a go. Another comment was, SoStocked helped me to streamline the process and get real-time visibility, helping me to minimize stockouts and forecast demand, which in turn helped me with cash flow management, no more expensive air shipments, and other related aspects. And then we've been doing the beta, and this tool is unbelievable. Chelsea Cohen. What? Oh, I just want to make sure people are still on where they are, because it kicked me out for some reason. Yeah, we got people. Okay, I got that. Chelsea Cohen has been extremely great to work with and has taken all of our input and put it into action. I can't say enough good things about this tool. Bottom line is you need this. It is a must-have. Okay, so I do want to kind of let you know, we are offering something pretty, this is something we haven't offered before. So right now, economically, I know there are some people that are taking a hit for sure. We are offering a free month of So Stocked right now. We do not offer free trials. So we're basically offering a free 30-day trial right now, meaning the offer is, you know, pay us no money today. The reason that we're offering this is, again, because we want you to be able to set up your systems and get things rolling for figuring things out in this period of time. And the reason we haven't offered a free trial before is because we're still in, I guess it would be called an advanced beta stage. We're still working directly with all of our sellers. We're still having, you know, calls with all of our sellers. We are doing one-on-one inventory management coaching sessions with our sellers. So what that means is that I will personally get on a phone call with you after you've set up your account, which we have a kind of a walkthrough of videos for you to set up your account. And then I will get on a phone call with you and talk about how to manage your inventory and how to set things up so that that you know what's going on and you know what to expect, and you know what tools to use within the software to plan for your next orders. The other thing that I'm offering as part of this is my copywriting masterclass. So I mentioned that I'm a copywriting expert. I have a copywriting service that I offer to Amazon professionals, and have been doing this for over 2 years, and spoken on stage a lot about this specific topic. Again, I've gotten, you know, people who've been able to go from 15 to 40% conversion just applying these copywriting techniques. So this is my masterclass, and this is lifetime access. And then my business partner, Dan of Thomason, is offering 2 free months of Thomason's unlimited account. So that's a $499 per month account. And that will allow you to connect with influencers who will be able to talk about and share about your brand. You'll be able to kind of connect with them about the possibility of promoting your company or your products. And so that's essentially a total value of $1,506.
Are you showing that screen?
Am I
Can you
showing?
guys see that screen, the webinar screen? Because I'm seeing something else.
This is the screen that I'm sharing.
Okay, yeah, I guess it was just, okay, go ahead.
Yes, we can see. Okay, good. So this is a webinar only disappearing offer. Essentially, this is $59 per month for life is what you're going to be getting for So Stocked, but you're going to be getting a free trial for the entire month. So that means you sign up today and you don't pay anything for the next 30 days. And if you do want to continue with So Stocked, you would just pay $59 a month for life. That's our lowest offer that we have currently existing for our advanced beta. And once we start launching it broadly with true free trials and major promotion, it will be probably around $97 for the lowest, and depending on how many orders you do per month, could go up to $499 per month. So this is the locked-in price. Doesn't matter how many sales your business does. Doesn't matter how many features we launch. Would be $59 a month, but today it's only you get it free for 30 days, and it's at that link. So Stocked. Okay, good. SoStocked.com/webinar limited offer, and you get to keep all of these bonuses whether you decide to keep So Stocked or not. So you get the Thomason unlimited account, and the copywriting masterclass, and the one-on-one coaching session, whether you stay with So Stocked, just as a thank you for giving it a try. This offer is going to disappear within 24 hours. So by 3 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow, will no longer be available. So, and this is for new users who sign up. Any questions that we can answer in the meantime?
So let me read them off to you. We've got a few.
Thanks so much for being on the call, guys. And I hope this helps you out, at least gives you kind of a good view of you know, of what you should be planning for, and then hopefully, you know, SoStock can be a tool that you check out for, you know, figuring out how to plan for the next coming months.
For sure. All right, so let's see. Chun-Lin Chang a while ago said, so going back to the forecast, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So she said, say with June forecast, I'm out of stock now. I'm
Mm-hmm.
using 15 days velocity and have 300% trend. How do I set this velocity till only June and then go back to normal from July onwards for Prime?
Is that for specifically for SoStock? Or
yeah, in your software, in SoStock, how
mm-hmm.
would you set that up?
Okay, I need to see the numbers. I don't know why it's not showing up for me. Let me stop sharing. Oh, there we go. Okay, is it in the questions?
Yeah, no, it's in the chat.
Oh, in the chat.
So way back at 1:37 p.m.
June forecast. I'm out of stock now and am using. Okay, so yeah, so you can use a manual velocity, right? So you can use a manual velocity in SoStock, and you know if you've got how do I set the velocity till only June? Yeah, so you can use a combination of a manual velocity and then also what's it called? Additional sales growth as an increase.
What are you trying to find?
I'm trying to find SoStock. So yeah, so we have, I don't think I'm sharing it. This is a rather technical question, and we can jump on a call as well.
Yeah, let's just keep the question short.
Yeah. So we have you know, we have manual velocity. We also have seasonal sales spikes. Chun-Lin, let's jump on a call and kind of plan out and strategize out how to do that particular scenario. But we do have seasonality that you can set, which will allow you to kind of compartmentalize certain periods of time.
Yeah.
So yeah, but let's set up a call, you and I.
Okay, good. And then the next one here is from Lisa. She wants the resource that we kept talking about, this magical
yes. Okay, great. Let me grab that. So the resource here, I'll put it in the chat for anyone who wants it. So this, you will see some of the things that we talked about on the call. Lowering prices, and there's a product that it's called a savings finder, right? So that's a business audit. They'll basically look at your entire business. They'll look at all of your purchase orders. They'll look at all of your invoices from your freight forwarder, and they'll see what savings they can find you, right? Within looking at what you're currently doing. To be able to assess whether they can find you some better savings. Product repricer, which is essentially finding a better sourcing agent for you. The other one is Tariff Buddy, to see if you're properly categorized and you're paying too much duties. And we have if you go to YouTube and you type in SoStock, you'll find our SoStock channel, and you can find our tariff webinar, right? But I'll also include a link here. I got it. And then ocean freight. If you want to find out about the 12-day ocean freight, you can contact them about that as well. China warehousing, you can also contact them about that. So sourcing a lot of what,
too. I know Lisa said she was interested in sourcing.
Yes, yeah, product repricer. So that would be a sourcing agent. He would find and they contact them. They don't contact them through Alibaba. They speak Chinese to them. They pay them in Chinese currency. You would also be able to save on your wire fees because you would be paying them in a US-based company, and then they would send the money over in Chinese currency. So you would be able to save on those wire fees, which helps you to be able to kind of place more orders more frequently without having to pay $40 per transaction.
Cool. All right, next question. Do you know how long things are going?
Oh, share the link to sign up.
What?
Someone asked to share the link to sign up. Here is the link to sign up, the SoStock link. Let me
make sure that one works because I typed it in before.
Yeah, if you type it in, it might not work.
Yeah. Well, just use the link that I posted in the chat earlier because I tested it.
Okay. I'm gonna just share the screen again.
Can I ask the next question?
Yep.
Do you know how long things? Oh, it keeps hiding my chat when you change screens.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know how long things are going? are taking now if you choose airship from China.
Mm.
I ordered as much as I could afford. I don't have a reference since my last order was a test, and I did it by sea. Yeah, to be honest, we don't know. Because normally we would know. It takes about a week.
Yeah.
Including check-in time. So like it takes about 2 days from putting it on the plane, going from China to wherever it's landing, and then getting to the various warehouses. About a week.
Yeah, Afolabi might know if you that link to Hanu. You can reach out to Afolabi and ask him. He's also going to be on. I'm going to share. He's also going to be on the call next week. Next week we've got a webinar, and you can ask him on the webinar as well if you don't want to email him.
Cool. All right, let me see if there's any more questions. If you guys have any trouble with that sign up link, let us know. It should be working. Let me see if this link works. Okay, yeah, the link, Lisa, that Chelsea posted works. So it's the, I just tested it from the chat. It works.
Are you getting questions?
No, no more.
There was a question.
Negotiate and look for manufacturers inside. There was a question before that.
I'll answer that though.
Okay.
So Enzo asked, negotiate and look for manufacturers inside SoStock ? So that's where that's long term. So right now we're partnered with Afolabi and Hanu, and that's the link that I shared earlier in the chat. I will also share it via email when I send out the replay. We are working with him. We plan to work with other sourcing agents as well. But the plan long term, what I've always envisioned SoStock to be is a logistics problem solver. So to be able to look at what's happening, look at your cash flow, look at stock outs, look at all of these different things, and be able to give you recommendations. So for example, if in the system we find that your supplier has been late three times out of 5, in the future we might give you a notification saying, hey, your supplier has been late 3 times out of the last 5. Here are some options. Adjust your lead time. Do this, do that. Or contact our sourcing agent and see if he can find you a better supplier. So in the future, the game plan is to take SoStock to a level where it can give you logistics recommendations, or you go and you have to ship now. You say, okay, well, do you want to use your normal guy, or do you want to go source this out to a bunch of other places that can quote you on your shipment, and then you pick the best quote. And so those are the types of things that we want to do in SoStock long term. That's the vision I see for SoStock and where it's headed, is to be able to help you to find problems and create solutions inside of the system. But right now we're just partnering with a sourcing company that is very, very good at what they do.
Cool. And then the last question that we have that I missed from Guy: Can your system help also in inventory management not related to Amazon?
So we currently are able to track what your warehousing is if you fulfill through Amazon. So if you've got, say, for example, a Shopify account, right, and you fulfill through Amazon, we're able to track the sales that get pushed through Amazon, and we're able to see and add that velocity into your system. We do plan on eventually being able to connect with Shopify, connect with Walmart, connect with these other e-commerce sites. Right now, we are able to service the US and Europe, and we're working on the final paperwork to get our Australia account set up, and then soon after that, Japan. Right. So that's kind of where we're at right now.
Canada and Mexico.
Yeah, but if you do fulfill through Amazon, if you do Shopify or some other place and you fulfill through Amazon, we can facilitate that velocity tracking.
But our API, we don't have an API into like Walmart, for example.
Not yet. Yeah.
We're working on it.
Yeah, I know. There's some people that want that. So we're as we bring in new members and as we push out new developments, we're always developing new things. So as we push out new developments, we then do surveys to the users to find out what their priorities are. We say, okay, we've got this and this and this and all of these things that you guys have said that you want. what is the priority? And so we are currently working on a priority basis as to what our most recent survey has said. We did that survey about 2 weeks ago.
Cool. I think that's it.
Yeah.
So unless anyone has any last
more related to inventory management and forecasting than
yeah,
that are not related. Okay. Questions?
Yeah. Not so much for.
Okay. Yeah. So we don't have. Yeah. It's currently we're on Amazon. Amazon plugged in, but Guy, if you send me an email, you can send to Chelsea or stock@sostock.com. You can reach me there. I'd be interested to know what other types of platforms you're interested in, because we always, like to get feedback and then look at, okay, well, when in our timeline, a development timeline, does that make sense? So yeah, so go ahead and again, jump on over to get your free account. Right? Again, it expires 24 hours from now. The page will literally disappear. So we want to definitely jump on that because it's not something that we offer. Most people have to just jump into the $59 a month from the get-go. And then also go ahead and jump over to sostock.com/seller secrets, and you can sign up for our webinars that we do with Afu Lobby. This mysterious sourcing agent logistics guy that I've been talking about, who's super ninja. He's going to be talking next week about shipping hacks that could save you thousands. So you want to check that out as well.
Cool.
All right. I guess that's it. If there is no more, I will see you on the next one. Thanks so much.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.